We'll start today, as we often do, with the Cleveland Browns. Team had a huge comeback against their divisional foe, the Baltimore Ravens, down 14 points late in that game last week, and they come back. They beat the Ravens despite missing an extra point that would have tied things up. They moved into the 6th seed, and we're really nipping on the Ravens' heels and, of course, Pittsburgh's heels when it comes to that division. And then this morning, more sad, overcast Cleveland news as Deshaun Watson out for the season. Browns issued a statement saying that he underwent a magnetic resonant imaging. Not necessary to be part of the statement, but thank you, Cleveland, for that.
Abbreviate the MRI. I think we've all got it.
Yes, like just MRI. Like I'm not even sure I knew what an MRI stood for. I didn't really care. I just knew what it was. Imaging on his left ankle revealed a high ankle sprain, which I'm not sure that you needed that to figure it out. In addition, post-game, Deshaun notified our medical staff of a new discomfort in his right shoulder that he felt after a hit in the first half. An MRI of his right shoulder revealed a displaced fracture to the glunoid. How do I pronounce that, Dr. Quinn?
Sorry, I'm trying to follow where you're at on this. I was looking at you in the camera, not that. Where are you at?
And as has been part of the narrative with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, glenoid. Yeah.
Glenoid, that's it. All season long, the Browns had to point out that despite performing at a high level and finishing the game, I mean, my goodness gracious, like we'll get into this a little bit more, I'm sure, but could the rhetoric surrounding the reports of Deshaun Watson being injured be more heavy-handed about how he, like, it's like, I mean, an absolute warrior out there battling through an injury. It's like, we get it. We get it. You want everybody to think that he's tough. He's done for the season, though, because of a shoulder discomfort.
Think that he's tough?
What's that?
Think that he's tough?
Is he? I mean, maybe he's tough. He's a football player. Of course he's tough. But it's like, I mean, ever since a certain discussion started brewing up about Deshaun Watson, there's been
this. So let's start there. Because
I didn't know we were going to go there, but we might as well.
Well, let's talk about the football part of it. Then we'll get to that part about Deshaun Watson.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's just talk about it. All right.
Yeah.
Notice the difference of how this has all been reported.
Yes.
Put out there.
Yes,
very
correct.
Clear by the Browns medical staff.
Yeah.
And from all parties involved, what the injury is, when it took place. I mean, even with the high ankle sprain, depending on the severity, he could have had to miss a significant portion of the rest of the season. So regardless of what it is, this is the Browns learning from the previous mistake of having a head coach who comes out and said he was cleared and then leaving it up to the speculation of everyone else out there.
Exactly.
This is completely clear what took place, when it took place, why he needs surgery, and why he's going to miss the rest of the season. So kudos to all parties involved, because clearly that wasn't the first thing, the first time around with the shoulder injury, what happened. Now, Will, I understand what you're saying, because obviously, as many people will, they'll send you stuff like, I'm not going to say what NFL reporters, but it's like, wow, did his agent write that for him?
Yes.
Which a lot of times we've seen that with some of the prominent insiders who will tweet things that it's like, wait a second, you're supposed to take that out when you copy and paste. Okay, that's happened to me on social media before. But I'll say this: it was his best half of football as a Brown,
correct,
no doubt. And he was gritty, he was tough, he fought through it. You know, you knew there was going to be the ankle injury because you could tell visibly watching him play. The shoulder thing, it'd be hard to. I have to go back and look. I haven't had time yet today to go look, see what hit it was. Yeah. But you really didn't notice necessarily, which is a good thing, I guess, if you're a Browns fan. But in this case, now it's like you got to spin it forward. And now you have to say, where does this put the Browns? Because the Browns are currently a playoff team. I had them a playoff team before the season started. And I think they still can be. But the problem is I think they've got to either have much better football from, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, looks like he's going to be the starter for this week, or PJ Walker, who has been the starter. And the biggest thing is just taking care of the football. In Dorian Thompson-Robinson's first start, didn't really take care of the football. PJ Walker in his 2 starts didn't take care of the football. That's the biggest issue that I think you have if you're a Browns fan moving forward is this team's good enough to still win games with defense, a running game, and a quarterback just managing it all. I mean, look, they're playing the Steelers this week. The Steelers are the case study for getting outgained offensively every single week this season and having a winning record and currently right now being in the playoff hunt or being in the playoffs if they started today.
Magic beans.
Don't lose hope. The Browns still have hope. They just need to be able to have, quarterback play that's not going to turn the football over. And we were saying that when Deshaun Watson came back, when he was out, it didn't matter. This is still a potential playoff team.
Yeah, as we look at this, there's so much to dive into. I'm glad you brought up that statement by the Browns, Brady, because it's like a totally different tune than what we heard earlier in the year, right? Because when you put out the words medically cleared, like you said, Brady, it leaves everybody up to their own interpretation. Like, is this guy healthy? Can he truly play? Like, why is he not out on the field?
Yeah.
When we had this discussion, guys, I was saying sometimes, you got to protect yourself from yourself as players, right? Because if you know that there's something still not right, we see Kawhi Leonard did it, right? When he's with the San Antonio Spurs, he decided to keep himself out of the game because he felt like he wasn't 100% healthy. I was just looking at Deshaun Watson's past, right? And he's always been a gritty performer. Like, people forget, when he's playing for the Houston Texans, he was getting beat up a lot of those games. And he was showing up every week until they had the issue and he decided he wanted to get traded. Now, I'm just talking about the football player on the field right now.
Yeah.
All the other stuff, you can come up with your own interpretation. But as far as the football player on the field, I've never been able to question his competitiveness. I've never seen it on the field where we question that. So when he was hurt and people were saying, potentially when you make $230 million, maybe that makes you take your time in coming back. I was just saying, from what I've seen on film, I've never seen him not play if he's able to actually play. Then we see him, I think it was Brady, 2-3 weeks ago, he comes in, doesn't look good, and take him back out of the game, right? Something clearly was still wrong with the shoulder. And like you said, Brady, the Browns handled this terribly, right, in regards to putting out statements saying he's medically cleared. Because, again, if you're not specific in that scenario, then you leave the interpretation up to everybody in the media to make their own interpretation. So I really did like how they came out and they were clear about his injury, what it was going to take, him, saying he still kind of wanted to play, even though he knew if he took a hit the wrong way, it could really damage his arm. That shows you how competitive he is. And to your point, Brady, that second half, you would have never known anything was wrong with his shoulder. He was perfect, 14-14 in the second half. And I think the thing that was gutsy, you talked about the high ankle injury. There was multiple times, Brady, he scrambled and picked up first downs, right? He scrambled and picked up a 2-point conversion. So, I think his competitiveness should never be questioned going forward. It just sucks if you're the Browns because you maybe feel like that we were getting that Deshaun of old, right? And now with that defense that you talked about, Brady, this defense is stifling. Like, Myles Garrett, to me, is the forefront leader for Defensive Player of the Year. This dude has been unblockable.
Yeah, we're good. I think the thing you bring up about his competitiveness being questioned, it's not that competitive is questioned. Because like the bigger topic of discussion, this came up from something that I brought up, talking about on radio. And this is why everyone started talking about it and everyone made it a big deal because they clipped off a portion and talking about a philosophical conversation is, do we question NBA players' toughness when there's load management?
I think people have been questioning Kawhi Leonard.
And that's what I'm saying is like, we're going to get to a point in the NFL if, we start playing 18, which will eventually come, and maybe even more than that, where some players, and even on Thursday night short weeks, they're just not going to be able to be ready from a Sunday to a Thursday to be able to play a game.
Correct.
Side note, it's one of the reasons why I wish the NFL would look at adopting primetime games throughout the course of the week to provide extra rest for players and not being beholden to Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and that being it. It's like, well, why not incorporate it Tuesday or Wednesday if you could figure out a way of giving some players some additional rest, additional days throughout the course of the year. But I think the greater point here is when you have a medical staff that clears you, all right, it leaves too much ambiguity as to like what's going on then. And that's been the biggest difference of what happened earlier this season and what's happening now. And there's a difference in like how your shoulder feels if it's hurt and banged up versus like you have the potential of not being able to ever play at this level again because of structural damage. Like it's not worth considering. It's not, you don't question it. It is what, like, you move on from that. Yeah. Like there's other injuries that you sustain that like it's going to be pain, like high ankle sprain. Like some of that, it might need surgery. It might not. You might have to wait sometimes till the pain goes down. You can play effectively. So I don't know that anyone was questioning his competitiveness. I think it comes down to just the miscommunication from the team and from his party as to what the heck was going on. And that's what left everything up to speculation. But in regards to, toughness and all that stuff, no one's questioning his toughness when you're a football player. At least they shouldn't. Unfortunately, I think in today's society, when there's social media and everything else there, like anyone can question anyone's toughness or question anything. So it is what it is. But I do think that wasn't part of the conversation necessarily. It was just the miscommunication or lack of communication, being clear about what exactly is going on. And that's not the case here. Like, the Browns know exactly where he's at moving forward, and they know exactly what they have to do moving forward too.
Well, I would say this, Brady, and I spoke about this, and people were worried about what his teammates would feel like. And Brady, you know this, after a while, if players truly feel like a guy can play, like, they'll start being like rumors and murmurs coming out of the locker room. That never happened in this situation. You never heard anybody come out. You never heard any reporters report that, certain players are frustrated that Deshaun isn't playing. And that should have kind of been a telltale as well, too, because I know we always say, Brady, we want to keep things in the locker room. But like you said, with social media these days and everything, things rarely stay in the locker room anymore in today's society, right? Things come out. So I just think, again, the Browns did handle this terribly is in regards to an original statement saying he was medically cleared, because that does leave it up to interpretation from everybody. Yeah. But I think players on the team not being frustrated in this situation. I mean, obviously they want Deshaun out there.
Well, you're winning.
They kind of know, like, if I'm in his position, if I'm not truly all the way back, I'm hurting the team if I go out there. And the crazy thing is, right, he did try to go out there a couple games ago. It didn't look good. And people said, well, he didn't look good before that, but we don't know how long the shoulder injury was lingering, right?
Yeah, but I think, again, when people make that statement, they're talking about the end of last year and then the beginning of this year, where Tennessee was probably his best game. He got hurt in that game, but
correct.
It's kind of a moot point now. It doesn't really matter moving forward because
he's done for
I think the frustration, even if there was players who were frustrated, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're not going to voice it. They're a winning football team. They've been right there in the mix the whole entire time. You tend to get players who question that more, I think, when you have a losing season.
Yeah.
And things aren't going by. Then everything gets questioned. Like, I harken back to the whole Bills situation with Ken Dorsey, and I know we're going to segue at some point, but like, if they don't have 12 men on the field,
he's not getting fired.
This is the pick. Does Ken Dorsey get fired?
Right. No, not at all.
Or if the Bills, exactly. And we will get to Dorsey in a minute. For the Browns, I think it was interesting just to like, and I know we talked about like the way that the Browns handle this too. You can see it with the quotes that are being disseminated out there, where it's like they Deshaun Watson's agent or somebody, Deshaun or somebody yelled at the Browns, like, look, if you're gonna, when you announce this, like, make sure that you do it right this time, and like, don't let this get out there, because you heard, I think the quote from Andrew Berry was that Deshaun Watson, and it calls it, quote, an incredible display of physical and mental toughness for Watson to play with a fractured shoulder and high ankle sprain. For more than one of the I mean, it's like
Jack Youngblood. It's like Jack Youngblood.
Yeah, but my thing is, if I'm Deshaun, I don't care about you saying that after the fact. Like, you're like, where was all this in the beginning when you left and left it up to everybody to interpret whether I was truly hurt or not?
So let me ask you this: what do we think they do next? Where do the Browns go from here in terms of they have DTR, they have PJ Walker. They said they're going to add a quarterback.
Here's the thing: I wonder if they don't look at the Josh Dobbs situation and go, man, I wish we would have hung on to him this year. Like, boy, that would have come in there. I mean, that was the team he was with, and if
they traded him for a 5th round pick.
Not only would he have helped them, earlier this year, he'd be definitely helping them right now.
He'd probably be elevating them right now.
I mean, he's played really well, man.
Yeah. Well, this is my thing, Brady, because I looked at that too earlier, and I'm like, first of all, you paid him. It wasn't like they just brought him in, Brady. They paid him to be the number 2 on this team, just in case a scenario like this happened. And I think they just got a little happy feet when they saw DTR play as well as he did in preseason. And we know, Brady, it's an immense like ratchet up period from preseason to regular season. And I thought it was interesting that there's rumors that DTR is going to start this week, because the one start he had, Brady, did not look good. At least with PJ Walker, you were still in games. The game that DTR played, they weren't in that game from the beginning. Like, it got ugly quick. So I thought it was interesting because they have been able to run, even though that, Nick Chubb is gone, Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt have been able to run the ball effectively. I mean, that Ravens defense was the number 1 defense in football, and Jerome Ford went over 100 on them. Like, they ran the ball really well. So that's what Stefanski wants to do anyway. He wants to be in 12 personnel, one back, 2 tight ends, be able to attack you down the seams with his tight ends, and then get Amari Cooper involved in the intermediate game. So I thought PJ Walker, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, because we talked about that too, if he could take care of the football, I thought he could be a consummate pro, a stopgap guy on the way to a run to the playoffs because their defense is just that good. Like that defense is going to keep you in games no matter what.
No.
So they have the Steelers this week at the Broncos, at the Rams, Jaguars, Bears at home, at the Texans. Deshaun Watson doesn't get to play his old team once again versus the Jets and at the Bengals. That feels like if you got Deshaun Watson playing well, like, all right, this is a very good chance for like a playoff team, and they can threaten the Ravens to win the division. Now it feels like,
I mean, I'll say this much: the Steelers, if the playoffs started today, are in. We don't look at them as an offensive juggernaut,
to say the least.
It's not like the Browns are out of this thing. Like they're really not. I still think they have a shot. I still think they have an opportunity. As long as they take care of the football, as Leger's pointed out, like they can run. That offensive line is one of the best in the league. The defense is one of the best.
They got to get healthy, though.
Like, that's part of it. But look, they weren't healthy last week, and they were still.
They still ran the ball. They
still ran the ball.
They lost.
Sean saving the plays, but
they've lost their 2 starting tackles, one of the 3 best running backs in the NFL, and Nick Chubb, and now a quarterback who they gave $230 million fully guaranteed $230 million fully guaranteed to, like. And a former like All-Pro / Pro Bowler quarterback. I mean, that's a lot. If they make the playoffs, Kevin Stefanski should get some Coach of the Year looks. Honestly, like
he's definitely in the discussion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at him and Kevin O'Connell, similar situations, right?
For
you
sure.
Lose your number 1 receiver. You know, the Browns lose Nick Chubb. You lose your quarterback. The Vikings lose Kirk Cousins. And this is why I always say, Brady, coaching matters, right? Because you got to be able to elevate your team. Like I think Josh Dobbs said it best, right? This is a production-based league, right? We don't care what you're going through, what scenario you're put in. Your job is to go out there and get it done. And both of these coaches have done that at a high level the last few weeks.